Greetings, Light Tribe. Janine Palmer here, Spirit Silver Moon for Harmony Energy Healing. Got a little candle going here. Set an intention for healing, whatever that is or whatever that needs to be. And this video is going to be a short discussion on offense, being offended, feeling offended. I did a little write-up on it the other day, and it was a poetic message called The Art of Being Offended, and it seemed like right away someone was offended by perhaps not understanding what it was trying to say. So there's a lot of things going on in the world now that have been ongoing for millennia that are dark or wicked or heinous or cruel. And a lot of people in this world are very empathic and they feel it very deeply. So it's very difficult for them to have that awareness of something that's going on in the world that is damaging, where people are being harmed or killed or suffering, or where something is controlling or manipulating or harming another. It hurts them. It's hard for them to deal with that. And so they're speaking out, which they should do. We should be proactive in whatever way we can, even if it's only through prayer or sending good thoughts, to try to make a difference. And a lot of what I share is about not feeding negativity with more negativity. But sometimes when we're in a space that's hurting or whatever, we might not realize we're doing that. That's just what's coming out of us. So that is not the same kind of being offended that I was referring to in what I posted the other day. I mean, how would you describe that? It's more, so much more, and or maybe less than being offended. It's not just being offended. We get outraged. I'm sorry, I'm not finding the words I want, but for how we feel about the atrocities in the world that we want to stop. And but sometimes there's things we don't know that may apply to it, or that might even be happening for the benefit of it. But it is good for us to be proactive and to do whatever we can do to help others so they're not hurting, so we're not hurting. And then there's being offended. And now these that I'm sharing, these are all limited perspectives that I am speaking of. But there are often types of stuckness that we are in mindsets, in programming, in perspectives, in ideologies, in unhealed parts of ourselves, unresolved issues, things we don't understand, things we haven't studied deeply enough so that we understand them more. So if we did, we might not react the same way that we do. But the type of offense that I'm talking about with regard to reactions is sometimes there's just triggers and there's reactions. So something negative will trigger a person, triggering something in themselves that's unresolved or unhealed or whatever, that they react to. And so something negative triggers something negative, and then that negativity comes back, and it's like a feeding frenzy. Something feeds it, and then we feed back into that thing. So there are issues like, ancestral issues where things are passed down, whether it's stories and knowledge or feelings or emotions that might come through the physical DNA, or stories we're taught, or programming with cultures and religions, whatever that might be, that is hard for us, and we haven't healed it. We're still fighting it, still resisting, still keeping it alive. Being offended by crimes that aren't now and crimes that are now, and staying in the loop of suffering and outrage. So how can we be proactive to try to shift that? Not by railing at it and being mad and spreading hatred, not by being offended in that way, but by trying to be a force of change, maybe a positive force. And sometimes it's that anger that fuels what needs to be done, but to let that flow, and hopefully not in an unkind way. So if it's speaking out, if it's making videos, if it's writing, if it's joining particular groups, but hopefully not hate groups, and hopefully not collective egoic groups that are thriving on the suffering. So when I write about being offended, okay, I do it for awareness, because at some point I'm hoping to work on the healing of that in some way, but that depends on the individual and what they choose, what it means to them and what they choose to do with it. So this is just a follow-up on my poem called The Art of Being Offended, because that's kind of, some of what I write is very direct. It's kind of like a shocker, like, whoa, and some people really get it. But some people might think, oh, but you're not understanding the suffering. Oh yeah, I am. That's why I do the work that I do. So what is being offended? Where does it come from? What's being offended? What feels offensive? What feels hurtful? And then what can we do about it? So how do we step out of that and into the next phase of what we can do to make a difference? Because we don't like, most of us don't like to see anyone or anything suffer. And we want changes to be made. And we don't like to suffer for the suffering that we see or hear or feel. So if we feel ourselves being offended, is it an old loop that keeps replaying? Is it something that's been passed down for generations? Can we do something about it besides just reacting to it and being angry and pissed off and being in any kind of a victim mentality? When do we step out of that? So that's just what this video is for, is if we feel that way, if we feel offense, if we feel offended, where's it coming from and what can we do about it? Peace.